us about how arts can help dementia, Maria.
Okay, many thanks. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? I know it's quite hard, and I'm going to pretty well gallop through this presentation because there's so much to say, and can I say I come bearing some better news about dementia. I know that's an odd word to use. We've seen the fantastic work that Alzheimer's Research UK is coordinating with other universities and groups all around, not just Oxford, but all around the world. So there's a terrific amount of work going on to find a cure for dementia, or at least an effective treatment. So what I'm going to be talking about really is the here and now and how to live well with dementia through the arts. So I'm the Chief Executive of Creative Dementia Arts Network. We're a small Oxford-based charity. I think we punch well above our weight, and I want to tell you some better news about dementia. What is arts and dementia? I tend to use this as a shorthand we tend to use in what is a really fast developing and huge field of research and community of practice. We tend to talk about arts and dementia. Well, it involves participation. This is using the arts to engage people with dementia, to help them to participate in the arts, and what a lot of arts are involved, and what a huge amount of arts organisations, arts practitioners and arts venues are now involved in arts and dementia. You can see the list, you know, everything from visual and digital arts now, VCR. Sorry, thanks Richard. So, some VCR, I saw some virtual reality going on in care homes the other day where people with dementia were being taken on world tours to Mayan dynasties. I mean, it was just remarkable. So we've got all of that going on, and music therapy, which is one of the largest probably endeavours in arts and dementia. This is a MHA care home. I know MHA very well, and in fact they're collaborating with CDAN at the moment, and we look forward to a long partnership with them. Arts and dementia, appreciation and observation. I was on a working party. The former Prime Minister set up a working party in arts and dementia. We produced a guide for museums, galleries, theatres and cinemas to make their exhibitions, plays, performances, shows more dementia friendly, to include people with dementia. And why do we need to include people with dementia? Well, not just the moral case about us all as human beings loving arts, loving a good movie, but also the social benefits of going out to somewhere like the theatre or to a musical. But the business case, you, all of you, and many, many, many more of you are a huge, possibly untapped audience or a visitor group who could go down to the road and see world-class arts. And I think we need those resources. With health and social care struggling to provide care and support, we need an additional, a helping hand almost. The guide, and there's plenty available, offers advice on staff training, case studies, but importantly it makes the strong case for partnership between the arts, the voluntary and the statutory sector. We all need to work together in this. Until 2012, not one of these older people and their carers or the young people had ever set foot in modern art Oxford. It's painted grey. I think white cubes are sometimes a bit, people think, oh, possibly that's not for us. We did the most fantastic project with modern art Oxford called Lost in Time and Space. And this group of people, and many more, actually, they're about 30, actually made a wonderful film about dementia. They went to see the Jenny Savile exhibition, and they all enjoyed it enormously. So why are we doing this? Why arts for dementia? Well, first of all, and I think it was very good to see all those wonderful research studies going on before this presentation. We know an awful lot more about dementia as a disease, but we have shifted our thinking and our practice from the focus on dementia as a dread disease that you can't do really much about, to something like seeing the person, seeing that individual, remembering they're still there and they can be present with us for an awful long time. And I know Elaine, who's following me, will talk about, you know, what it is to be a family carer. And lots of you who are carers or nurses will know there is hope in our hearts. There is someone there, and we are trying to help and support them for as long as possible. Increased prevalence and the costs of dementia. This is a major public health challenge. We need all hands on deck. The government strategy and policy is to live well with dementia, to raise awareness of dementia, to provide early diagnosis and to promote dementia-friendly communities. I get the most incredible amount of news from the Journal of Dementia Care. I'm on the editorial group, and I know every week when the editor sends me a bulletin that there are going to be more groups of people, whether the ambulance, police, fire service, the banks, who are getting behind thinking about dementia. And in a hyper-cognitive world, and here I am speaking extremely fast, we need people that take account of living with dementia in our everyday lives. There's a well-established field of arts and health. Suddenly they discover ageing. Arts practitioners, arts organisations and arts venues have discovered there's a huge population of older people and people with dementia that they need to respond to. For me, the seminal report was David Cutler's report. It's online at the Bearing Foundation, Older People and Professional Participatory Practice in the UK. It opened the door to a great bit of Bearing Foundation funding for older people in the arts, and now the Arts Council. We need to know that it's effective. We know that arts for dementia works. We need research to show positive outcomes. And here's a wonderful couple of photographs from Lights Up, which is the Arts and Memory Club in West Oxfordshire. And some of these people who were involved came in to the club that meets every 2 weeks in Chipping Norton and in Carterton presently, but the Guidepost Trust are hoping to roll out the programme across the county. They came in anxious, probably feeling a bit down, feeling a bit confused. But as soon as the circle dancing started, and every week there's a different kind of activity, the felting this week, and I've seen wonderful Sue Smith, who was a volunteer. I know she's here this morning, and I want to thank her because, you know, it's volunteers that are really important in our arts work. People were calm, they used sensory material, felt, and, you know, it's again about belonging. Lots of different benefits, I won't go through them, but enhancing daily activities, giving people a sense of purpose, self-identity and self-esteem, bringing pleasure and joy. We know from studies that being involved in different arts reduces depression and anxiety. It challenges stigma and stereotypes. When I see people with dementia enjoying themselves in different arts, you know, this is something different. And family carers say to me, gosh, you know, I was able to see him, even if just for a moment, you know. In the moment is important. People may not remember that last week they went round the Ashmolean together, but actually, does it matter? Because that moment of joy is really important. And for me, it provides a means of communication, especially when words fail. And some of you may know these portraits by William Uttermolan. He was a younger person with dementia, and he continued to express himself all the way through his dementia. So the last, you know, there he is. He's a portrait painter. I mean, this last slide is very, very poignant, and sometimes people see it as a sign of, you know, abject and, you know, abject feelings and failure. For me, it says, actually, I'm still here. I'm still making a mark, you know. Wonderfully, Seb Crutch, who was in charge of some of the treatment and care of William Uttermolan at the National Institute in Queen's Square, younger people with dementia, was so taken by the experience that he set out on the course of bringing arts and dementia into research. And there's a wonderful project called Created Out of Mind. It's got welcome funding. It brings together scientists and artists to explore, challenge and shape perceptions and understanding of dementia through science and creative arts. It's got a wonderful website. I know these slides are going to be available for those of you that are scribbling, and I have put a lot into them. We've also got the wonderful Alzheimer's research, Alzheimer's Society, who put funding into 2 doctoral training centres for arts and dementia. And there are now 6 students doing PhDs that will give us a lot more information about what's effective in the arts, how we should present them as interventions if we're using those phrases. And a very large Arts and Humanities Research Council funding project has just finished, led by Jill Windle at Bangor University. It again is, the findings are coming out. I really feel very positive about what's happening. We can tell a lot, and one of the things that Zeb Crutch's team is looking at paintings and changes. We saw some of the changes in the brain that were illustrated in the presentations before break. We can tell a lot from the way in which people compose art, and we can look at de Kooning's paintings to show some early changes ahead of dementia. There's an awful lot on this slide. You are all fortunate living in Oxfordshire, where we've got a wonderful amount of arts and dementia taking place. We've got an arts partnership manager who I saw last week. We're planning a huge Oxford Festival of Ageing the Arts in which dementia will be showcased. We've got Helen Fountain. Helen, can you put your hand up? There she is. Helen Fountain is our wonderful reminiscence officer, and she runs Memory Lane, and those of you that don't know about it should. It's an amazing project which provides opportunities for older people and those with memory problems to get involved in all kinds of projects and programs. We know that the Oxford University Museum Partnerships have done an awful lot of work with dementia, and I'm just mentioning Nicola Young's project with Young Dementia UK, which was me, myself and Manet. Everybody responded to this wonderful portrait, Mademoiselle Claus, which was saved for the nation by Manet. Not by Manet, by Ashmolean, painted. The moving music concerts that are quarterly, Jacqueline Dupre Music Building, Danielle Battigelli, one of the founders of Creative Dementia Arts Network, set them up. Hannah Savenka deserves huge recognition, West Oxfordshire Arts Officer, who's always supported arts and dementia, and she's just got some funding to run a 2-year arts programme at Whitney Hospital. Kate Hamlin, who's at the Oxford Institute of Population Ages, wonderful researcher and evaluator. They're doing some great things about giving us better evidence of how the arts work. Janet Stansfield, who runs the integrated choirs. I shouldn't forget Singing for the Brain, Jeannie, the Alzheimer's Society in Oxfordshire, wherever she is. They've been running Singing for the Brain for the last 2 years. We've got 2 very active forums that people can join if they want to. I'm not going to have enough time really to speak too much about what we do. This is a programme that's going to be run out nationally. It's a professional development programme for those arts practitioners who want to learn how to work with people with dementia using their arts. We called it Flourish. We were very grateful to OCF for giving us funding and for the Oxfordshire Arts Partnership for giving us funding for travel, which is very expensive in Oxfordshire. We ran a workshop. We placed people in residence and they worked with people with dementia. Here's this wonderful photograph, and I won't play the film because it's too long, is Rhonda Sparry, who's a dancer, and she was leading a dance workshop for 8 weeks in Henley with Nia Williams, who also is a very accomplished piano, who plays piano for Parkinson's, and music on a Monday afternoon at the old fire station. We gave everybody a mentor. We gave them reflective practice workshops because it's quite something to engage with people with dementia, whilst you're doing some art, and a programme manual. And I'm glad to say we think it's a terrific, and in fact I evaluated it, so I know it's a terrific success, and we're going to roll it out nationally. We organise conferences. Last year's at St Hilda's, and if you look in the centre, I don't think they're here, but this husband and wife, Gwyn, his lovely wife, came to the conference. We welcomed people with dementia and danced with us. And finally, we're preparing to roll out Flourish nationally. we've got 2 conferences coming up, one in Sheffield Hallam and one which is much more sort of science focused, is at the Wellcome Trust in London. None of this would be possible without support from the MHA organisation, national provider of care and support for older people, care homes, extra care, live at home and day centres, and their music therapy. And our new patron, Nikki Gerard, the author and journalist, who actually took on inflexible visiting on NHS acute wards when her father had dementia and started something called John's Campaign. And I'm very remiss in not mentioning this, but she champions arts for people with dementia. And last year won the prize, the George Orwell Prize, for her work on arts and dementia and raging against some of the social ills that we find ourselves facing. Dementia is one of those. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you better news about dementia. Thank you.